So I want to tell everybody out there watching this that these are two of my best mates. That's for sure. I met Doug when we were in Australia, and I met Malcolm, who goodness knows where. Was that? Well, you can say Malcolm if you want to, but I've known them both for more than, I'd say, what, 30 years, something like that. And and one of the things that stands out is their honesty, their sincerity, and certainly in this case their love for Mike Weber.
You got the wrong blokes.
Yeah. So they're going to tell you about Mike Weber, and they were both real good friends of Mike. So tell me, what about Mike?
Well, Ranger, you certainly met Mike Weber, and he was the man that was instrumental in starting Schwartz sweepers in Australia. He bought a sweeper from Mark Schwartz, brought it out to Australia and pulled it apart, put it back together and made it go better. And then decided that this was the best way. Air sweeping didn't exist in Australia. He teamed up with an engineering company and Doug here in 1999 and started to build the Schwartz sweeper in Australia. And we started off from scratch, zero impact on the market, and within 3 years, due to Doug to a fair degree and me to a lesser degree, but certainly to Mike Weber, we had 68% of all the municipal tenders in Australia, which was a remarkable effort. Mike was a wonderful fellow, an extremely good mechanic and self-taught engineer, kind to his staff, considerate, but a great leader, and that's what he did. He put up with us and our weird ideas. We'd come up and say this would be better, and he'd bob his head up and down and have a talk to you and quietly point out why it wouldn't be. And he completely revolutionised street sweeping in Australia, and will be sadly missed. He unfortunately didn't cope well, or corporate America didn't cope well with him. They couldn't understand how you could fly by the seat of your pants. So he parted company with Schwartz, well, with Alamo and Schwartz. And he died recently, and he'll be sadly missed by us all.
In April of 2016, when did he pass away?
That's right, it was in April, and
yeah. And
huge,
right now,
huge funeral, wasn't it, Doug? The place was full. They were 10, 15 deep.
Yep.
To show you the extent of it, Ranger, he had people there, like Doug and I from so long ago, people that he worked with before then, customers, suppliers, everybody was there.
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was the sweeper business. History in Australia were there, from Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, municipal figures that were councillors and fleet managers and all the rest were there. Just guys that worked for him, and only for 12 months. They hadn't seen him for 15 years, and they heard that he died. They came. And what Malcolm says is right, that Mike was a great contemplator, and he'd take these ideas. I don't ever recall, ever, Mike Weber saying, that's a bad idea. He never said that. He said, oh, well, that might work. He's Welsh, and he's from Welsh background, Mike. That might work. We'll do a bit of we'll try and do a prototype, or give us a week or two and I'll think about it. And the ideas grew that way from someone who didn't just kill ideas off. And when we took ideas that Mike and Malcolm and myself had put together to America, and I presented them there at the boardroom, and they said, well, that won't work. You know, you can't have a 6-metre hopper, for example, with the sweeping gear of a 3-metre hopper. It'll create slippage, the vacuum will be lost. It won't pick it up. We didn't tell them, but we'd already done it. And we had 14-inch pickup tubes, 6-metre hopper, and a fan that was a little different to the way they'd done it. The little fold backs on the ends of the blades that cut the whistle down. And we showed them some videos of picking up half bricks and bricks at 5 kilometres an hour through 14-inch pickup tubes, which was an idea, of course, it wouldn't work. But it was working. When Mark came out here, he said, it's not even like a Schwartz machine. It's so different, you know. I'd like to buy the company. And that's how come we end up buying this Schwartz Australia, because the technology that had been put together with Mike and ourselves, but Mike's fostering of the ideas and the encouragement of ideas from people on the floor, spare parts, sweeper drivers. He was a great gatherer. Customers, absolutely, a great gatherer of ideas.
Always took the view that your customers were your best R&D.
And he's right about that, of course. What they clipped together with a piece of wire and a D-shackle, Mike was able to blend that with that to come up with something that was special. And it was special. That's why it did so well out here. And I take my hat off to Mike, I really do. And I take it off not just for his management style,
As a man.
but as a person. And I think that was what happened at the funeral. There was so much about little stories and ditties and things which he did for people, which, you know, he could be a stubborn bastard, but he endeared himself because he did it from the heart. And so, you know, hats off to him. And I can't say we never ever disagreed. We disagreed a lot, but in the 9 years that Mike and I worked together, we never had a stand-up argument. And I thank Mike for that, because I'm a fairly fiery guy and I would have had some, but the way he handled it all, so he's a father in the sweeping industry and someone who busted his guts and worked hard to be that.
And we'll miss him.
Absolutely.
We will miss him,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right now, standing here, all three of us. When I visited, here.
Is it still running?
Yeah. So watch your left hand. Keep it up. When I came here and visited, and you can see that at World Sweeper in our country section. Look for Australia. And it was during the time that they're talking about. These guys were running, they were gunning, they were doing it right. They could introduce me to any number of municipal folks, and everybody loved them. Everybody knew who Schwartz was, and they were taking over. They were taking names and doing whatever they wanted to with them.
Breaking necks and cashing checks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was really that time, you know. And Mike Weber was certainly part of that. Mike is just completely thought of as a nice guy and an innovator guy. And like you said,
Yeah.
he would listen, and then he wouldn't take. He might not like your idea, but it would spawn this idea, which was just almost like your idea.
Yeah.
And
He'd never tell you that it was a bad idea.
he wouldn't just say, yeah.
He
You could
just
see
wouldn't.
that.
It was
You could
just,
see
you know,
it.
he'd lock it away and he'd think, well, I haven't upset him. He's going to come up with another idea that maybe it'll be a better version of what he just gave me, sort of thing, you know.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, special talent.
Special
It was
talent
him
indeed.
as a man.
Well, his great advantage, of course, was that Mike's great advantage, of course, was that he was a sweeper contractor. He ran
Yeah.
probably the largest privately owned sweeping contracting business in Australia, based out of Brisbane.
Yeah.
So he'd done it. He'd worked at midnight. He'd gone out and fixed a sweeper on the side of the road
In the rain.
in the rain, and crawled underneath and managed to get it going before he had to go to the next contract. So he knew the game from the inside. And that's one of the things I think is lacking from a lot of the sweeping manufacturers, in that they manufacture a product and say, there it is. But once you've been on the other side, once you've been in the cab and you've sat on your ass in a sweeper sweeping for 8 hours,
Yeah.
you think differently about the manufacturing. And Weber had the opportunity to be on both sides. And the Schwartz sweeper, produced in Australia, called an A6500, similar, I guess, to a Schwartz A7000. But man, that would sweep the A7000's arse off. It swept like nothing else. Better than any sweeper I have ever seen in the US. And I've been in this game nearly 30 years, and I've never seen a sweeper sweep any better than the one we built in Australia.
And we built that machine. Incidentally, this will be interesting for folks that are in the sweeping business. We built that on a 5-ton chassis, a 6-ton chassis, a 7-ton chassis, and an 8-ton chassis truck. And that 5-ton machine would turn in such a tight turning circle, tighter than most standard sedans. because of the wheelbase, which means following that curb, getting under that tree, wheeling it around this tree. It wasn't a big, cumbersome triangle turn. And the sweeper drivers would often say to us, I don't know if I want this machine because it just cuts 3 hours off my sweeping time. What am I going to do? They're going to cut my time down. That wasn't it, Malcolm? That was quite common.
The efficiency levels delivered were, 50
absolutely,
and 60%.
Absolutely. So born from the grass up. I well remember Mike, back on Mike. He come into work there one morning. He worked with us and he still owned the sweeper business, and he was nursed a bit of a shoulder and not one to complain. He'd have something bloody sore, and this was one of those cases. I said, what happened to you? Oh, I had a bit of an accident. I said, what do you mean you had an accident? Did your wife give you a belt or something? He's got this wingy arms up like this, winging up. No, he said, I was up on top of the sweeper on a McDonald Johnson sweeper, in fact it was, and he was been sucking out pits and it got a blockage up high and it was raining and he slipped off the top of this bloody great thing and he landed on the bitumen. And I said, have you been to see the doctor? No, it'll be right. Get your shirt off and show me. He pulls the shirt off and he's all blue and black through here. We went and got him x-rayed and he pulled all the sinews off the bone, had to have them stitched back on. That was Weber. He was still at work, 7 o'clock the next morning, with his shoulder like that. He said, we've got to not ever build something like that. We build something that we can fix that will block up on the top.
And you stand on top of our sweeper and not slide off.
Not slide off, and that's where it came from.
Kind of like, though, that reminds me a little bit of that what's Carl Austin has on the hat that he gave you, is it for Scottsdale Airport the weekend, it says...
It sells the Scottsboro bunch.
Scottsboro,
flying
yes.
club. We can land anywhere, once.
And it strikes me that because Mike Weber landed on the ground once, things got changed.
Things got changed. On top of what Malcolm just had to say, and alongside of it, about the sweeping industry, that we both felt this, saw it from other manufacturers and from the American corporates that we had a bit to do with. A friend of mine gave me a hat which says, education without experience creates dickheads. And we had people telling us that will work, and they're sending out their sales staff to sell these machines to operators, and they go back to the engineers and say, well, the damn thing won't sweep, it's leaving a trail or it's dropping it. That's not possible. These sweepers, they work. Well, to hell with it. They've got the knowledge, but they haven't got the experience, and the word dickhead comes to mind because they're letting down the troops. It costs the company $100,000 a year to put the salesman out there to sell something that a damned engineer says will work, but the guy on the ground, it's over-invented. It's like a shovel with a headlight on it, it's just out of line.
And right now, we're keeping this digression because, after all, we're talking sweeping industry, and Mike wouldn't like anything better than to be part of this conversation
He'd
right
be
now.
Here. He'd be talking with his hands.
You know what's going on? One of the things going on in America right now is that they're selling auxiliary engines, like, for example, John Deere comes to mind.
Yeah.
And you can't buy the diagnostics. So John Deere won't sell the diagnostics. So you take your sweeper in, which they've never seen before probably, with its auxiliary, and they say, well, we got a lot of tractors ahead of you, but maybe we can look at that next week sometime. And the guys are saying, I don't care what the diagnostic is, sell me the blipping diagnostic.
Yeah.
And so far it isn't happening. And that's got to quit, I think.
There's a lot of things causing that, Ranger. It's the EPA pressure and global warming pressure and all of that, which is quite right, which is driving the engine control systems higher and higher and higher, so that the engine is now very, very complicated. You can't fix it yourself on the side of the road. There's no way. So you win some and you lose some. You want clean air or you want dirty air.
Yeah. But if you've got a diagnostician at John Deere or Cummins or wherever it is that can figure out what's wrong with it with the diagnostic tool, there's damn straight somebody in sweeping, your technicians that will buy that machine, learn how to use it, and not have their sweeper sit for 2 weeks when maybe they'll look at it and they still don't know what a sweeper is.
Well, Ranger, in the end, we've got to feed our families, right? We've got to keep the business afloat, and it won't be the first time that because you can't get that sort of support from whoever the engine supplier is, the engine control system be bloody well pulled off and chucked in the cupboard, and they'll go back and they'll bypass it, because the ones that don't, their businesses go broke. the ones that are the innovators, the ones that have got so much drive and passion for what they do. And so help me, we're not going to be beaten by this, because that machine's got a contract tonight. If I don't get it done, my ass is grass. I'm going to be in trouble. They'll work a way around it. So, you know, it's always been the cases like, I don't know, rerunning something that's been running for 25 years, I suppose. But necessity is the mother of invention. And what you do, what you have to do. I think that's a cliche, but you got to do what you got to do in the end.
Well, you know, when I started 30 years ago and with the, well, you know, almost 1988, 89 with Superback Quarterly, one of the things you didn't ever hear from the contractors that I would interview is that they missed a night of sweeping. No, never. It didn't matter if their truck went down or their whatever went down. They went out with a dustpan. They went out with whatever they had to do. The route got done. And I think, you know, that's one of the things we've got to remember too. That's the legacy of this is if you say you're going to do it, do it. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Amen.
Roger.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's I want to make it plain that I too am taking my hat off to Mike Weber.
This is Ranger's
Because-
hat.
Yeah.
Look at
You can hold over your heart for Mike, and I'll stand erect and do the same.
the bloody
There you go. There you go. We love you, Mike.
All right.
Cheers.